Never mistake a kind soul for a harmless one. Sometimes the quietest storm will drown you in vengeance you never saw coming. Let that marinate for a second. You see, kindness isn't weakness, it's camouflage. It's the final grace before the reckoning. And some people, oh, they really thought they got away with it. They played you like a fool, mistaking your patience for permission and your silence for stupidity. But let me hit you with a cold, brutal fact. Psychological studies show that people who are highly empathetic often endure the most emotional abuse. Why? Because manipulators sniff out soft hearts like bloodhounds on a trail. They know you'll forgive, they know you'll overthink, and they bet you won't bite back. But here's the part they forgot. Even angels have execution dates. Now, karma isn't a myth, it's math. And guess what? The bill's due with interest and late fees. So grab your popcorn, because this isn't just a comeback. This is the part where the chosen one rises, flame-forged, wide-eyed, and done playing nice. They took advantage of your kindness? Good, because now they've got front-row seats to their own downfall, and you, my friend, are the trailer, the plot twist, and the ending they never saw coming. Number one, they thought kindness was a lack of intelligence. They looked at your kindness and decided you must not be that smart. That's where they messed up. See, some people have this twisted idea that if you're not loud, aggressive, or constantly calling people out, you must be naive or easy to fool. They see your soft voice and open heart as an invitation to manipulate. They confuse compassion with ignorance. But the truth is, it takes a very specific kind of strength to stay kind in a world that keeps trying to make you cold. You knew what they were doing. You felt the shift, the energy, the fake compliments, the moments they used your loyalty like a doormat. You didn't miss the signs. You just gave them a chance to be better. That was your kindness. You gave them space to grow, to be honest, to correct themselves. And they used that space to take more, to lie better, to see how far they could push without breaking you. They didn't know they were playing chess with someone who already saw 5 moves ahead. They thought you were too kind to notice, too emotional to act. But they forgot. Emotional intelligence is still intelligence. Just because you don't clap back every time doesn't mean you didn't catch what was said. Just because you gave them another chance doesn't mean you didn't see the pattern. You were being gracious, not clueless. Now they're in shock, because the same kindness they thought made you soft is the same strength that's walking away from them without flinching. That same softness they mocked is the reason people love you, support you, and stand behind you when they have no one. They thought they were smarter because they lied better, manipulated faster, and used people with no guilt. But what they really showed is how empty they are inside. Kindness isn't a weakness, it's a warning. Because once you take advantage of it, there's no going back. They gambled everything on the hope that you were too nice to do anything. Now karma's making sure they realize just how wrong they were. Number 2, you gave them peace. They forged a weapon out of it. You gave them peace, real peace, the kind most people pray for but rarely find. You brought calm into their chaos, stability into their mess, and loyalty into a space where trust was a joke. You listened without judging, showed up without being asked, and loved them even when they didn't know how to love themselves. And instead of protecting what they had, they weaponized it. They turned your peace into an advantage, like it was something to manipulate instead of something to appreciate. They got comfortable, too comfortable. Your patience made them reckless. Your forgiveness gave them room to get bolder with the disrespect. Every time you let something slide, they took another step, a little more selfish, a little more careless. They thought, if I can keep getting away with it, why stop? And that's exactly what they did. They kept pushing, kept taking, kept draining, thinking your kindness meant you'd never walk away. What they didn't understand is that peace isn't passive. Peace is a choice, a powerful one. You chose to be calm in the face of chaos. You chose not to match their energy. You chose to lead with love. But peace has limits. And once you disturb the source of peace, you invite the storm. Now they're about to learn what it really means to lose someone who held their life together without asking for anything in return. They mistook your peaceful presence for a lack of options. They thought you stayed because you had nowhere else to go. The truth is, you stayed because you believed in them. You saw something worth saving. But belief has a breaking point. And once it's gone, there's no fixing it. Not with apologies, not with tears, not with fake promises. They used your peace to build comfort for themselves, never realizing that when you leave, the whole foundation crumbles. Now, karma isn't sending a warning, it's sending a mirror. And what they see won't be you anymore. It'll be the mess they made when they turned your peace into a playground, and this time no one's coming to clean it up. Number 3, they studied your habits, not your potential. They paid close attention to your habits, how you moved, how you loved, how you showed up. They memorized your routines like a script. When you replied, how you handled conflict, how quickly you forgave. They studied you like a test they thought they already had the answers to. But the problem is they only studied the version of you that served them. The version that stayed humble, that kept giving, that didn't ask for much. They focused on who you were in their presence, not who you were becoming in your own. They never looked beyond what was convenient for them. They didn't see the hunger in you, the way your mind worked late at night, or how deeply you were evolving behind the scenes. They saw your current situation and mistook it for your ceiling. They thought the chapter they walked into was the whole book. That was their first fatal mistake. People like that love to box you in. It makes them feel safe. It lets them believe they're above you, that as long as they understand the now version of you, they can control the future one. But your growth was never for show. It was quiet, intentional, relentless. While they were too busy trying to keep you small, you were building in silence. And now that growth is starting to show, and it's loud. What they didn't realize is that potential doesn't shout, it whispers. And they weren't listening. Now they're watching you from a distance, confused, bitter, maybe even scared because you're not who they thought you'd stay, and everything they assumed about you is starting to fall apart. You didn't just evolve. You surpassed every version of yourself they ever thought they had figured out. They studied your patterns, but they ignored your power. And that mistake? That's one they don't get to make twice. Number 4, they underestimated the price of betraying someone protected by purpose. They thought betraying you would come without consequences, like you were just another name on their list, just another good soul to drain and discard. But what they didn't realize, and what they still can't fully grasp, is that you're not just anybody. You were chosen. And when someone is walking in purpose, carrying light and built to impact lives, hurting them comes with a price tag that doesn't just hit emotionally, it hits spiritually. You didn't show up in their life by accident. You were a blessing disguised as a person. You gave support, wisdom, healing, and stability in ways they'll never find again. And instead of honoring that, they used you, lied to you, took from you like your presence was something disposable. But when you betray someone protected by purpose, you're not just messing with a person, you're interfering with alignment. And the universe doesn't play when it comes to realignment. People like them never think long-term. They're too focused on what they can gain in the moment, too arrogant to realize that some people are sent to elevate, protect, or even unlock a chapter in your life. But when you violate that connection, everything that was supposed to grow through it begins to rot. That's the cost. They broke a bond that was meant to bless them, and in doing so, they cursed themselves. Because the thing about being chosen is this: even when you're down, you're never out. Even when it feels like you lost, you're still covered. Your setbacks are temporary, but their betrayal echoes. It doesn't just affect how you see them, it affects what life begins to remove from them. Not as revenge, as balance, as justice. That's why you don't need to get even. You don't need to explain yourself. The same divine force that gifted you the heart to forgive will also make sure the betrayal doesn't go unanswered. Not because you're special in an arrogant way, but because you carry weight, purpose, a role in something bigger than yourself. They didn't just betray a person, they betrayed a calling. And now, that cost is coming due, with no discounts, no delays, no mercy. Number 5, your downfall was a setup for their exposure. They thought your downfall was the end of you. They clapped quietly when you stumbled. They whispered about your failures like it was entertainment. They shared your lows, exaggerated your struggles, and smiled at your silence, thinking you had nothing left. What they didn't know was that the very thing they celebrated was the setup. Your lowest moment wasn't your defeat, it was the trap that exposed them, because when people think you're powerless, they stop pretending. That's when their masks fall off, that's when their true colors show. And when you were down, they revealed themselves, fully. No filter, no shame. Suddenly the ones who claimed to love you vanished. The ones who said they had your back stopped answering, and the ones who were always secretly waiting for your fall. They couldn't hide their joy. But what they didn't realize is that karma doesn't move on impulse, it moves with intention. It watches, it waits, it lets people dig their own graves while they laugh at yours. And while they were busy enjoying your pain, they were also writing the script for their own downfall. Because it's easy to fake love when things are good, it's easy to play loyal when you're winning. But when life strips you down, the real ones stay, and the snakes start to hiss. That moment of struggle, that was your test, but it was their exposure. And now it's all out in the open. Who used you, who envied you, who left, who lied, who only stood beside you because they thought you'd always shine for their benefit. You see, your pain was never pointless. It peeled back every fake connection, every shallow alliance, every hidden agenda. It brought the truth to the surface, and now it's all crystal clear. And the best part, you didn't have to expose anyone. They did it themselves. All you had to do was survive. They thought your fall would bury you. Instead, it buried them. Because now karma's not coming with warnings. It's coming with receipts. Number 6, you healed quietly. That scared them more than your pain ever did. They were ready for a fight. They expected drama. They braced themselves for the backlash, the angry messages, the public call-outs, because that's what they were used to: chaos, confrontation, emotional outbursts. That's how they kept control. They thought that after everything they did to you, you'd come unhinged, that you'd break loud, cry out, beg, explode. But instead, you went silent. Not out of weakness, but because you were healing. And nothing shakes a manipulator more than being ignored by someone who used to react. You didn't give them the satisfaction. No fireworks, no breakdown. You just disappeared into your own space and got to work on yourself. And while they kept checking your page, waiting to see if you were still hurt, you were becoming someone they couldn't reach anymore. You weren't focused on revenge. You were focused on rising, and that scared them in ways your anger never could. Because when you heal quietly, you cut off the supply. No more reactions, no more emotional access, no more giving them space in your mind. You pulled all your energy back, and they felt it deeply. That silence made them uncomfortable, not because it was empty, but because it was powerful. It meant they no longer had control. It meant they couldn't guilt you, bait you, or spin your narrative. It meant you were done, and you weren't looking back. That's the part they never expected. They thought your healing would be loud, messy, full of posts and proof and people choosing sides, but it wasn't. It was quiet, sacred, personal. And while they were still stuck in games, you were leveling up in ways they couldn't see and now can't touch. You didn't heal to prove anything to them. You healed to free yourself from the cycle they tried to keep you in. And that freedom, that glow that came after, that's what truly shook them. Because you didn't just survive what they did to you. You transformed because of it. Number 7, you forgave them for you, not them. You didn't forgive them because they deserved it. You didn't do it to make peace with them. You did it to finally make peace with yourself. Holding on to that pain, that betrayal, that weight, they didn't carry any of it. You did. Every sleepless night, every overthought conversation, every replay of the moment when everything changed. It was eating at you, not them. So one day you decided to put it down, not for their benefit, but for your sanity. Forgiveness didn't mean you forgot. It didn't mean what they did was okay. It didn't mean they earned another chance or that you wanted them back in your life. It meant you were tired of bleeding for a wound they weren't even sorry they caused. It meant you chose your peace over your pride. It meant you wanted to heal more than you wanted revenge. And that's the part they'll never understand. They thought your forgiveness was an open door. They thought maybe they could come back, maybe they still had access. But this wasn't about making them feel better. It was about cutting the emotional cord they kept tugging on. And once it was cut, they were left clinging to the guilt you no longer had to carry, because real forgiveness is powerful. It shifts the energy, it breaks the cycle, it stops the story from being about them and makes it about you again. You took your power back, not by getting even, but by not letting what they did define you any longer. That's the kind of healing they never saw coming. Now they're stuck in the memory of how they hurt you while you've already moved on. That silence they hear, that distance they feel, that's the sound of you finally being free. And the craziest part, you're lighter without them. Happier, stronger, whole. They still carry the damage they caused, but you You let it go, and that's what they'll never recover from. Number 8. They built their empire on your broken boundaries. They didn't just cross your boundaries, they bulldozed right through them. Every time you said no, they pushed harder. Every time you tried to protect your peace, they found a way around it. They treated your kindness like an open door, your trust like a welcome mat, and your limits like suggestions to ignore. They built their little world, an empire of control, manipulation, and advantage on the cracks you didn't know how to seal fast enough. But here's the thing about empires built on brokenness. They're unstable. They might look solid from a distance, but underneath it's chaos. A fragile house of cards waiting for the right moment to fall. When you allow people to trample over your boundaries, you're not just giving up your peace, you're handing them the blueprints to destroy themselves. What they didn't realize is that every time they crossed the line, they weren't just taking from you. They were sowing the seeds of their own downfall. Because boundaries aren't just rules for others, they're promises to yourself. They mark what you'll accept and what you won't. When those promises are broken repeatedly, the damage isn't just personal, it becomes structural. Now, after all the misuse, the empire they built is starting to shake. Your patience wasn't endless, your forgiveness wasn't unconditional, and your strength wasn't invisible. The earthquake is here. It's coming from the very foundation they thought was so easy to break. They thought they could keep exploiting you without consequences, but what they forgot is that the ground beneath them is not as steady as it seems. You're not just standing up, you're shaking the earth, and when that happens, everything they built on your broken boundaries will crumble. Their control will vanish, their lies will fall apart, and the empire they constructed on your kindness will be exposed as nothing more than a pile of rubble. You're not the victim here. You're the force they never saw coming. Number 9, you were their mirror. They smashed it when they couldn't face themselves. They never wanted to see the real version of themselves. They craved comfort, lies, and distractions. But you, with your kindness and clarity, became the reflection they couldn't stand. You held up a mirror they desperately tried to avoid, showing them every flaw, every insecurity, every ugly truth they buried deep inside. Your light wasn't just brightness. It was exposure. It forced them to confront parts of themselves they'd rather keep hidden. At first, they tried to ignore it. They smiled, pretended everything was fine, and kept playing their games, but the more you stayed true, the harder it became for them to keep pretending. You became the reminder of what they weren't willing to fix, the proof that they couldn't hide behind their masks any longer. When the mirror reflected something unbearable, they panicked. Instead of facing their own darkness, they tried to destroy you, the mirror itself. They lashed out, spread rumors, tried to tear down your reputation and twist your kindness into weakness. Because it's easier to break the truth than to live with it. They thought if they could just shatter the mirror, the reflection would disappear too. But here's the kicker. When glass breaks, it doesn't vanish. It scatters, sharp and dangerous, cutting through lies and illusions. And that's exactly what karma does. It doesn't just come quietly after the mirror breaks. It arrives like a storm, piecing together every shard of truth they tried to hide and throwing it back at them, sharper and more painful than before. They wanted to silence the reflection, but instead they unleashed the consequences. You were their mirror, the truth they feared, and now they're forced to live with the cracks they created. Because no matter how much they smashed and shattered, the truth doesn't disappear. It multiplies. And karma always finds a way to bring every broken piece back home. Number 10. They were playing a game with no rule book, forgetting life always has referees. They thought they could bend the rules, or better yet, break them entirely, because in their eyes, life was just a game they controlled. No boundaries, no consequences. Just take what you want and run. They played reckless enough to believe they were untouchable. But here's the truth they ignored. Every game, no matter how unfair it seems, has referees. Invisible ones, unseen but always watching. The universe doesn't shout. It doesn't rush to judgment with drama and noise. Instead, it watches silently, collects every foul, every dirty move, every moment someone crossed the line. It files it all away, not for punishment, but for balance. The universe knows that justice doesn't always happen instantly. It can be patient, methodical, and most importantly, inevitable. So while they were busy celebrating their wins, built on lies, betrayal, and exploitation, They forgot that the clock was ticking. Every shortcut they took, every boundary they broke, every heart they trampled was noted in slow motion like a replay of a foul on a big screen. It may not seem urgent now, but that moment is coming. When everything they thought was safe starts unraveling. When the weight of their actions crashes down like a referee blowing the final whistle. The replay isn't loud. It's not a quick judgment. It's deliberate, showing every detail they hoped would go unnoticed. And the best part? No one else has to do anything. The universe takes care of the call, the penalty, and the fallout. They thought they were playing without rules, but karma always keeps score. They're about to learn that the game never ends until the last whistle blows, and when it does, no lie, no manipulation, and no betrayal can escape the verdict. The replay is coming, and it's going to show everything. Number 11, you had to walk alone so your footsteps could become thunder. They never understood why you chose to walk away, why you embraced solitude when they begged for explanations or clung to false promises. They saw your loneliness as weakness, a punishment, a sign you were broken or defeated. But solitude wasn't a prison, it was your forge. It was the quiet space where you rebuilt, reshaped, and redefined yourself away from the noise and manipulation. You weren't lost, you were becoming. Walking alone wasn't about isolation, it was about reclaiming your power. Each step you took in that silence grew heavier, louder, more certain. Your footsteps weren't just movements. They were the sound of strength building beneath the surface, the slow rumble of a storm gathering in the distance. They were the proof that you weren't disappearing, you were preparing. In solitude, you faced your truths without distractions, healed wounds without excuses, and shed the weight of others' expectations. You learned who you were when no one was watching, and that foundation made you unbreakable. They thought your absence meant they had won. They believed your silence was surrender, but what they didn't expect was the return. Now your comeback isn't quiet or subtle, it's a roar, a thunderclap that drowns out their lies and deceptions, your growth, your resilience, your success. It all shouts louder than any of their attempts to keep you down. The solitude that once seemed like a sentence became your superpower. They will hear you coming. They will feel the impact of every step you took away from them. Because your transformation wasn't just about surviving, it was about arriving stronger, wiser, and more unstoppable than they ever imagined. You walked alone, yes. But those footsteps? They weren't just noise, they were the beginning of your revolution. Number 12, they confused temporary access with permanent ownership. They acted like they owned a part of you, as if your kindness, your time, your heart were theirs to keep forever. They treated your presence like property, something they could take for granted, control and use whenever it suited them. But here's the raw truth. You were never theirs to own. You were never a possession or a guarantee. You were just a guest in their story, a visitor who came with grace and goodwill, hoping for mutual respect. They confused temporary access with permanent ownership. Because when someone visits, they don't build a home, they enjoy a moment. They don't dictate the terms, they accept the boundaries. But these people, they crossed every line, pushed every limit, believing your visit was an endless lease. They took your trust for granted, thinking you'd stay no matter what. Now the visit is over. You're packing up the pieces they left behind, the broken promises, the faded loyalty, the exhaustion from carrying them, and you're leaving, not out of bitterness, but out of clarity. You realize your presence was a gift, not a given, and when a gift is mishandled, it's okay to take it back. They never truly had you. They only had access to the version of you willing to stay, but that version is gone. You're reclaiming your space, your time, your energy. You're moving on because you deserve to be more than a visitor who's been overstayed. This is your exit, graceful but final. No drama, no looking back. Just the quiet power of someone who knows their worth and refuses to let anyone treat them like anything less. They thought they had you, but you were never theirs to keep. And that truth, that's what they'll never get over. Number 13, your silence wasn't weakness, it was strategy. You didn't stay quiet because you were weak. You stayed quiet because you were watching, calculating, letting them believe they had the upper hand. That's the funny thing about silence. It doesn't always mean surrender. Sometimes it's the most dangerous thing in the room. Because when someone wrongs a person who's silent, they assume they got away with it. They don't realize that the silence is where the real power sits. You weren't arguing, you weren't explaining, you weren't begging, you were observing, recording every fake smile, every subtle insult, every shift in their tone. They thought they were playing you, but you were letting them finish the game. Because the truth is, when you know who you are, when you're clear on what you bring to the table, you don't waste your breath trying to convince people who benefit from pretending they don't see your value. You just watch them hang themselves with the very rope you handed them: kindness. They thought you were afraid to speak up. No. You just knew your voice was too expensive for people who never earned the right to hear it. You weren't being passive. You were being surgical. You let them talk. You let them dig. And now karma doesn't need to look far. It's got a full map drawn from the very lies they thought were hidden. See, some people play loud because they fear being seen, but you play quiet because you know what's coming. You don't have to prove anything. Your growth, your peace, your glow-up, that's the thunderstorm that's been brewing in silence. And now that storm is here. They thought you were silent because they broke you. The truth is you were silent because you outgrew them. And when karma arrives, it's not coming with a bang. It's coming with everything they thought they'd never lose. Number 14. Their betrayal wrote your rebirth story in ink that doesn't fade. Their betrayal wasn't just a wound. It was the ink that rewrote your entire story, a permanent mark on the pages of your life that won't fade with time. It's easy to think of betrayal as something to recover from, a setback to overcome, but for you it became the catalyst for something far greater. You didn't just survive the pain, they forged you anew. Every broken promise, every lie, every stab in the back became a chapter in your rebirth, written in bold letters for the world to read. You're not here just to bounce back to who you were before. You're here to become untouchable, stronger, wiser, and more resilient than they ever imagined. The scars they left aren't marks of weakness. They're sacred scriptures of your transformation. Each one tells a story of endurance, of lessons learned, and of power reclaimed. Those scars are proof that you faced darkness and refused to be consumed by it. What they did to you was meant to break you, but it only made you more unbreakable. You took every shard of betrayal and used it to build armor around your soul, a shield forged in fire and fueled by purpose. Now, when they look at you, they don't see someone who fell. They see someone who rose from the ashes, someone whose story can't be erased or ignored. Your rebirth is a living testament to the fact that pain, no matter how deep, can become a source of incredible strength. You're not just a survivor. You're a warrior with a narrative that commands respect. The ink of their betrayal is permanent, but so is the power it gave you. And that power, it's untouchable. In the end, the story isn't about those who chose to betray your kindness or take advantage of your heart. It's about you, the chosen one who refused to be defined by their actions, the one who turned pain into power and silence into strength. They played their games thinking you were just another player to be manipulated, but what they never understood is that you were always on a different level. Their betrayal was never the final chapter, it was the prologue to your greatest transformation. You walked through fire not to be consumed, but to be refined. Each wound they inflicted became a source of wisdom, each scar a mark of survival. They underestimated your capacity to heal, your ability to rise, and the depth of your purpose. And now, as the dust settles and karma aligns, their reckoning is not just a possibility, it's an inevitability. The universe has a way of balancing scales, and when it doesn't forget the smallest injustice or the deepest hurt. But the most extraordinary truth in this whole journey is that you didn't just outlast the storm, you mastered it. You chose elevation over revenge, peace over chaos, and growth over grudges. You understood that true power doesn't scream for attention, it radiates quietly, relentlessly, and unapologetically. You became a force that can't be shaken by betrayal or weakened by the shadows others cast. So let them witness the undeniable fact that kindness isn't weakness, it's strength disguised as grace. Let them see that being chosen means carrying a weight heavier than pain and lighter than fear. Their time of advantage is over because you are no longer the person they thought they could break. You are a testament to resilience, a symbol of unstoppable spirit, and proof that when karma moves, it moves with purpose. This isn't just a story of what happened to you. It's a story of what you've become, unbreakable, untouchable, and undeniably victorious. And as you step forward, remember your journey is the kind that shakes foundations, disrupts false empires, and rewrites destinies. You are the thunder after the silence, the light after the darkness, and the truth that no one can ever silence. If this message resonated with you, don't keep it to yourself. Share it with those who need to hear it. Hit that subscribe button to join a community that values real strength, growth, and truth. Like this video if it spoke to your journey. Comment below to share your story or thoughts, and share it with someone who's ready to rise above their struggles. Together, we're not just surviving, we're becoming unstoppable. Your support fuels this movement, so let's keep the energy alive.